Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Digital Supply Chain Podcast. My name is Tom Raftery, and with me on the show today, I have my two special guests, Jan and Lorenzo. Jan and Lorenzo, would you like to introduce yourself with maybe Jan going first?
All right. Hey, Tom, and hi, Lorenzo, and good morning, everyone. My name is Burian. I'm with IDC here in EMEA, and so my focus is mostly the manufacturing digital technology, and I also try to understand the way the companies are transforming themselves into the digital environment. And generally speaking, also I would try to also understand the way how to make a Europe and European manufacturing more competitive compared to the other parts of the world. So thank you for having me.
Okay, and Lorenzo?
Thank you, Tom. So Lorenzo Veronesi here. I work in the team of Jan, and I'm Associate Research Director at AC, and I lead the Global Smart Factory research here. So I look at everything that happens in the shop floor and how technology can support this.
Okay, fantastic. And one of the big technology trends that we've seen emerge in the last 8 months, roughly, or a little more, has been the emergence of generative AI and large language models. Now, we've seen how this can be useful in lots of places, the likes of call centers and service centers, these kind of things, and in everything from making recipes and travel itineraries to all kinds of things like that. But is it something that you think is phenomenal? Is it something that you think is underwhelming? Where do you fall on that scale? Is it overhyped, or is it something that genuinely has legs?
Okay, I started this one, right? So I mean, we are getting a lot of the questions like these, right? So was it a hype, or is it like a something really like a game changing, right? So maybe and here at IDC we believe it's also the sort of like a story of AI. We call it AI everywhere, right? So in every aspect of the companies, but also the personal lives, right? So definitely it's more than just a hype. Of course, as any technology, it evolves over the time, right? And I mean, personally, what I can see what's different compared to the other technologies is that, I mean, it started, with tools like a name, like a ChatGPT, for example, right? So, which could everyone like literally test by her himself at home, try to test the technology, and then to transfer it, into the business life, right? So I would say it's from a toy thing into the really, let's say, business game changer thing, right? So this is quite unique way. So definitely that's beyond hype. Of course, there's a sort of the adoption curve. Now, I mean, the companies who started there, they could be considered sort of like early adopters
Mm-hmm.
now. As we go through the time, we can see more and more companies are jumping on that curve and try to investigate the solutions and the technology itself, but also try to understand the risks. And we're gonna get to that a little bit later.
Sure, Lorenzo?
Yes. Yes, I agree with Jan. And actually, I think at the beginning of the year, myself and a colleague wrote a blog post on the DC website about the role of the ChatGPT in a manufacturing company, trying to sort of also dispel some of the myths that were coming around this technology. And for a while, that was the first search result you could find in Google with my name and ChatGPT manufacturing. That would be the first result. So it was quite popular. We knew that blog had a very short shelf life, though. And in fact, after a couple of weeks, Microsoft acquired ChatGPT, Google released Bard, and so on and so forth. So the idea that we moved through 0 100 very, very quickly in a couple of months. And now we are sort of at the phase where we see the industrial world understanding the technology and looking at the potential of this technology. And in fact, when I attended Hannover Messe in April, May this year, it was still not a very. I mean, the thing was, no company was presenting it because they didn't have the material to show, but everybody was talking about it. So it was really at the cusps of transforming the manufacturing world. And in the past few months, we are seeing a lot of deployments in this space. So we're going to be covered here in this podcast.
Okay. And I mean, I can understand how ChatGPT might be used, as I mentioned earlier, in like call centers and tech support and things like that. But how would you use ChatGPT in a manufacturing environment? What would that look like?
Before Lorenzo starts, maybe let me share, I would say, one line or one data point from our IDC survey when we asked global level the manufacturing organizations about the way they, I would say, they were thinking about investing in generative AI technology. And I was quite surprised that 27% of the respondents, and I think that there was over, I would say, at least like a couple of hundreds of respondents there, that 27% said that they are really also investing in this, right? Already, in May, that's quite a short adoption period, right? So 27%, it's quite impressive number, right? And then another almost like a 40, they said they were doing sort of like an exploration of potential use cases, right? So we can see that companies are trying to or taking that really seriously, and maybe what might be the reason would be also that maybe some companies, they were just quite late with the digital transformation efforts, with adoption of AI or the other, I would say, significant technology, right? In the way they implemented it or adapting it. But now with the generative AI, that's something really new. But all the managers or C-suite level people, right? So they went through, I would say, these sort of like a cycles for another technology. So they know that, the sooner they jump on this wave, the better, right? So because it
Yeah.
could really help them to gain that competitive advantage. Maybe Lorenzo could really reveal the areas of use and some use cases we already seen on the market.
The sky, there's no limit here. Is really something that we don't. It's very difficult to say these are the use cases because every company is making up their own approach, and so it's extremely variable. But we can summarize the use cases into four broad categories. The first one is about a user conversation. So we can see the system used as a way to remove the friction in the interaction between a person and a system or a machine. We won't be able to speak to our machine very soon. And probably this is not even the most compelling use case you would want in a factory with a lot of noise and distractions. But potentially, yes, this technology can help supporting a very natural interaction with machines beyond the traditional human-machine interfaces. But also, for example, think about the conversation you can have with your suppliers or with your trading partners. A company can onboard the supplier, and by having a chatbot interact with the supplier in an extremely precise and extremely natural way, but also by bringing out all the relevant points that are essential for signing these very complex contracts. And this can be totally automated potentially. We can see the opportunity, for example, maybe not specific to manufacturing, but it could be relevant in a manufacturing setting where so many different units and type of people work in a manufacturing company. Having a sort of a survey house system where you see you have a conversation between the employees and the company in automatic way to understand maybe what are the common problems, issues arising, what's the morale of the workforce, and so on and so forth. So sort of a daily pulse, getting a daily pulse of the company, what are the most commonly thought processes, etc., thought ideas, etc. So that could be a way. And there are so many other examples. Another area is knowledge management. So as we see, Bard or ChatGPT have been trained on pretty much everything the humankind has produced on internet. So they're very good at taking a lot of information and summarizing it. So the biggest help here could be, for example, in creating a centralized repository of the company information that can be interrogated in a very natural way. And also, for example, embedding this sort of feature with a sort of a co-pilot function, so that every worker can have an assistant, a digital assistant that can suggest steps, action during their operation, their work. It could be in a factory, it could be in a warehouse, it can be in a service execution setting, it can be in an office, it can be when you're trying to maybe define a new marketing plan. You can see that have the system telling you maybe a lot about the latest trends. And so just driving and helping the work of people. Another area, which is really what generative AI is for, is content generation. So you can we can think about having the system supporting the design of a company, of the design process of a company, providing ideas, but also, for example, ideas and suggestions and alternatives. But also it can be, this can happen in the factory with designs of the factory, with layouts, with proposing different operational improvement strategies. And that doesn't have that type to be accepted, but they can be received by the user and validated and considered. And this can really open up the innovation space in an organization. Also, something more manual, more simple, like creating automatic catalogs of maybe an engineering company or like a discrete manufacturing company with a product configuration, very complex product configuration. It can be used as a way to simplify the process of showing the customer or prospect what's relevant for them and not excess information. And also, of course, the software development. There's a big talk about how this application can code and can support coding activities. And certainly this can be very relevant in an organization when you want to integrate machines. Machines in manufacturing, the machine integration is extremely complicated activity, because the machine have different programs, they have different generations, and the coding there's not a standard unified system, despite the effort of the likes of the OPC Foundation. So having a system that can simplify the integration of the machine by automatically coding the missing gaps, that could be quite helpful. And generally speaking, as a way to integrate different systems together, to jumpstart the integration of different systems without a massive human intervention, that can be very helpful. And generally speaking, it's a technology that can really, remove the barriers and the friction between the interaction of people and technology, and make every process much more flexible and much more efficient. Now, this is just about getting the right approach, and we can discuss maybe in the next of this the coming steps on this webcast.
Sure. I can actually think, Lorenzo, of two other use cases where ChatGPT or large language models and more generally could be used. One, there is a podcast called the BBC Happy Pod, and it's a lovely podcast that goes out every Saturday, where they ask people to send in sounds that make them happy, and I decided, why don't I send in the sound of my EV, my electric vehicle? Now, electric vehicles, because they're very quiet, by law, they have a speaker built into them in some part of the car, which transmits a noise so that when they're going under 25 kilometers an hour, pedestrians can hear the noise coming from the speaker and are warned that a car is approaching. Once they go over 25 kilometers an hour, that turns off, because then the noise from the tires is enough that people can hear it. But by law, they have these speakers somewhere on them. My EV is a Kia Niro 2021 model, and I had no idea where the speaker was because they're hidden. So I went into ChatGPT, told it I have a 2021 Kia Niro EV. Where is the speaker in this car? And it told me exactly where to find it. So I was able to record it and send it into the BBC Happy Pod. So the point I'm getting to is these large language models know everything about every device, the most arcane device you can imagine. You ask it, does it know about it? It will know about it, and you can ask it, questions. We had a problem with our dishwasher in the kitchen, and I asked, where's a particular component of that dishwasher? It was able to tell me. So for maintenance, for example, these large language models can be incredibly useful. And the other thing that I would say is in terms of data science. So the latest plug-in that OpenAI have released for ChatGPT is what's called its code interpreter, which is a terrible name because it's nothing to do with coding per se. What it means is when you turn on that plugin for ChatGPT, it becomes your pet data scientist. And so you can upload files into it and then ask it what would be an appropriate analysis to do on this data. So you don't have to be the data scientist. I downloaded, for example, the stats for this podcast. They come down in a CSV file. I uploaded that to ChatGPT using the code interpreter, and I asked it what would be interesting analyses to do on this data. I gave it no hints. I just said, what would be interesting analyses to do? It examined the file. It said what kind of file it was. It said what the data was. And it then suggested 3 or 4 different types of analyses that could be done, and then went ahead and started doing them. It produced graphs for me. It showed me, or it created download links to Excel data, Excel spreadsheets that it created from those. So suddenly companies can have their own pet data scientist to look at their data and to examine it and do analyses and in all kinds of ways. So, the use cases you put forward are fantastic as well. The myriad of use cases, as you see it yourself, the myriad of use cases that are out there for this kind of stuff is just absolutely phenomenal. But I think we should also talk not just about the use cases, but to Jan's point earlier, what about the risks? What kind of risks are there and what kind of barriers are there for organizations to use this kind of technology?
Yep. And I totally agree. And before we start with that, let me just add that, one of our end user client already, it's like it's a global manufacturing company. They already identified 50 possible use cases of Gen AI across, all the units and process areas, including the marketing, sales, after sales. You name
Wow.
it, right? By the way, for us, it's very important to understand the potential for core manufacturing processes and for logistics supply chain processes, right? Because it's like the automation, right? Or like a RPA thing. Like you have like some common areas which are pretty much the same for, in financial institutions, manufacturing, I don't know, the utilities, whatever it is, right? So HR, sales, marketing, but then you have like a core processes, and this is where the value of each particular technology should be tested and proven. And then there's another perspective, and it's also related to what you just said, right? So for personal use, that's fine, that's enough, right? And you also don't do any activities which could destroy something or whatever, right? So, or distract something, right? Because you have your own brain, you get information from a chat, and then you think about it if it's doable or not, or if there could be some hazardous element in that, right? So it's like a personal use, but for industrial use, for industrial usage, right? So where you put also the company's, let's say, knowledge or some proprietary information in it, right, to get some output, then you're practically giving your I would say your own information, to the outer world, right? So
Yeah.
and this is the segue to the risks and challenges, of course, right? So generative AI is based on the data which is being captured. From it's like a unstructured post, like unstructured data, right? You can get them across the network. So in the end effect, the technology could create its own reality, so-called hallucinations, right? For example. So you still need to be thinking about the outputs, right? So if they really make sense, or if they can be a threat to your business, or it could be like a different biases, right? So I would say that at this stage of the technology adoption or development, there still need to be that, let's say, human element that in place, right? Which is really thinking about the output and about possible impact on the reality, like if you use it for maintenance, right? So I mean, of course, if you're just looking for some information like how to maintain this on that, this type of asset and this type of asset, you can probably find information there. But if you really would like to use it for some sort of like hey, like the question could be like, for how long I can run this engine until it stops or blows up, right? Then you probably be very careful if the Gen AI tool tells you you can run it for next, I don't know, like 6 weeks, and then after 2 weeks it just explodes, right? So this might be in extreme effect. This might be a situation everybody wants to avoid, right? So we are somewhere, but we need to be very careful about how we deal with the outputs of such a technology.
Sure. Lorenzo?
Yes, and yeah, to this point, we can really summarize the main barriers or risks which become barriers into two families. One is about the sort of cybersecurity and data privacy kind of story, and this Jan has highlighted, and this is sort of mitigated by the fact that these tools are now embedded in the main infrastructure solutions, so Microsoft, Google, AWS. So in a way, it's not impossible for companies to build their own data pool to which on which operate these models. So, and the model has been trained on a larger data set, but then is used on a specific set of data, and so that can be very mitigated here also with synthetic data, etc. So that's not a big deal, but it's something that has to be considered very carefully. On the other side, and how the problem is the output, how we can trust the output. And Tom, I encourage you to ask ChatGPT or recipes about, for example, cooking fish legs. It will give you hundreds of recipes, very articulated, and that's a problem we want to avoid. And I think what will come to my conclusion is that there are two ways. Either you know already the output, so you can tell this is right or wrong, this is good quality or not, wrong, the good quality or not. So in this case, you're using the generative AI just as an assistant. Mm-hmm. So pretty much it does what you would done already, but it simplifies your work, it takes less time. But then you are 100% the competencies to review the output and judge the output and elaborate from that. The other situation is where you don't know the output, like the example of Jan, or like say you ask the system, what's my OE? 75.3%. Okay, is it right? Is it wrong? What I do with that? If you don't know this, then you cannot use this information. No company will sign off for that.
Yeah.
Such a project. But I think the solution here is to have a system that is extremely precise. You define in a very precise way what are the steps that the system is going through to get the output. So pretty much, it's something that is very prescriptive in a sense, so that you know the output is right because the system has gone through a very precise and carefully checked steps. So in this sense, you can trust the system. But if you combine both things where you don't know really the process that generates the answer, and you don't know whether the answer is right or not, that's a no-no. That will never be signed off in any company. So the solution is try to mitigate that by adding some check level, either in the process or having a real person reviewing the output.
Okay. I guess another point there as well, in terms of the privacy point that you both raised, the emergence of the open source versions of these, the likes of Llama 2 and the others that are out there now, mean that it should be possible to download something like Llama 2, stand it up on your own infrastructure, and then feed it your own data and keep it in-house. And that way, there's no risk of your information being with an organization like OpenAI or someone else if you're not trusting of them, which is a fair point. And I think another potential thing that might help in terms of the checks that you talked about, Lorenzo, this is kind of a bit of a hack, I guess, but because there are so many of these large language models out there and available now, ChatGPT, Bard, Bing, etc., if you do get an answer that you're not sure of, you could try run it through 3 or 4 of them and see if you do get a consensus or not. And then if you do get a consensus, you might be more confident in the outcome. But again, to your point, it's not really something you should rely on, and no company would sign off on that. To your point, yeah.
No, blindly not.
And
But
go on, Jan.
yeah, but on the other hand, we still, but we still talk mostly about it. I mean, again, our focus is the enterprise focus, right? So, and here we see that, I would say, there's the dynamic is a little bit different here. And here we see that the organizations that manufacturers, for example, right? So but also the other industries, right? So they work with the tech vendors to build their own, I would say, protected Gen AI tools, right? So which are also being trained on the information or using information coming from the really, I would say, trustful data source, right? So that's maybe that could be probably the way how the organization is going to operate, or going to leverage the power of the Gen AI technology, right? And also that some of them, they also try to build something which is really like industry specific, right? So if you're like engineering company, you build that model which leverages information really most, relevant for the use in engineering, for example, right? So it's like makes everything that comes around.
Yeah. And what's the kind of next development of technology in the manufacturing area? Where to from here?
Okay, so So maybe I give this to Lorenzo. I can just say what I just said, right? So generally speaking, there are two perspectives. One is the way the technology develops itself or evolves itself. The other is the way how the companies are going to adopt that technology, how they gonna embed it into their infrastructure, into their processes. There, where we see that what's really need to be, the homework the managers need to do is also to understand how impact the KPIs, of course, right? And what kind of ROI there could be, right? So, and what kind of ROI could be, nowadays, with when you apply the technology on a current processes, and how does this affect the processes, the performance of the processes of even like entire companies in the future, right? So this is, this type of, let's say, the mental exercise must be done by the managers. But it's like with any other technology, of course, right? But this is where we see that the organizations are at the very start. Most of the organizations are at the very start of when thinking of how to adopt generative AI.
Sure. Lorenzo?
Yes, I just wanted to bring out the point that, in addition to what Jana said, that we saw these technologies like booming and coming to us very abruptly last year because there was a public release of these functionalities. But the technology in itself, it took several years to be perfected and built up. So it's not like we saw a trajectory of this technology coming very rapidly at us, but because we just, as users, we saw it arriving last minute. So we shouldn't be expecting that the same trajectory will be over the next few months. So we need to consider and treat the technology as relatively stable at the moment, and just try to find the best use cases and the best opportunities for that. So we shouldn't be expecting like a massive revolution every 2 months. So the revolution has come. It's a little bit like the internet. It took several, even decades to perfect the technology in a military or private setting. Then it was made public, but then evolved gradually, not at the same speed. So that's sort of the same concept here. So let's use it carefully and when it makes sense without being distracted by the hype and treating it as any other technology that we have at our fingertips.
I
Okay,
think
and
that
for organizations who are thinking of jumping into this space, what kind of guidance or recommendations would you have for them?
yeah, I mean, so the different thing to understand, I mean, the technology itself, and also understand how to how to how to identify the relevant use cases. I mean, again, I mean, it's pretty much the same like with the AI or with machine learning technology, right? So, which by the way, I mean, we can have that feeling that machine learning was already or has been already fully adopted like everywhere, right? And now generative AI is another evolution step, but it's not like that, right? Because these solutions or the use cases, they are being run in parallel. And let's say from my own experiences, I focus on AI research for many years. I mean, I can see that the company, I mean, a lot of the manufacturing, even global ones, they really fail to scale, right? So they do one pilot here, the other pilot there, but to really scale in an industrial manner, that's where they struggle quite a lot. And if they scale, then another, I would say, challenge is to maintain those models, right? So that they could run, I mean, smoothly in a next couple of years, for example, right? So these are, I would say, they are the already lessons learned which could be transferred from AI/slash machine learning use cases or adoption into generative AI technology adoption, right? So I wouldn't be really reinventing the wheel here, right? Because nowadays I would say that there could be three main ways how to, I mean, leverage this technology, right? So could be publicly available tools like ChatGPT, right? Maybe like a couple of times here, but there are also some safety concerns. Then could be the technology could be embedded in enterprise solutions, right? So in CRM, in PLM, in ERP, right? Which is happening right now. So this is also the way, or those types of like co-pilots being also embedded in these enterprise solutions. And maybe the third way is to really look at that as a technology which could help you to build the use cases and applications. All right. So if you go these three ways, combine them, or in industrial use, maybe every area could be more focused on embedded solutions and use case and applications, right? So that's probably be the best way. And as I said, right, focus on, let's say, the way to move from piloting phase to be really able to scale effectively.
Okay, Lorenzo?
Yes, and to add what Jana said, I think there's one principle, three principle. One is to make sure the deployment is right and think carefully about, especially what is done at corporate level, because the risk typically is that company do the botched development just maybe out of a rush, and then this doesn't deliver the expected results. So defining the right KPI is also clear. How I measure the success of that, it's very important. But if this process doesn't go well, then company may start thinking, this is not for us, and they miss maybe a cycle of innovation, and so that's a big risk. um, and another point of view I think is very important to remember is that these technologies is coming to you, no matter whether you're an active participant or you're more passive, because it will be embedded in your email system, it will be embedded in your operating system, your laptops, will be embedded in your cloud system, your machine interface. So it's just coming because everybody is trying to find ways in the technology sector how I can use this technology to transform the features and function of my products. and my value proposition. So it will arrive, and the company need to have a plan and need to think about how they can transform the way that people work with this technology, because ultimately, this is the third point, is not about automating people away in a way. It's not about getting rid of people and replace them with technology, but it's assigning tasks to a technology that are not efficient anymore to be done by people, so that people can focus on tasks that are more value added and can be only performed by real people. So that's sort of the target here.
Cool. Gentlemen, we're coming towards the end of the podcast now. Is there any question I haven't asked that you wish I had, or any aspect of this we haven't touched on that you think it's important for people to think about?
Maybe not a question, but I would say that this particular technology, generative AI, could be also understood as another sort of like a stepping stone or building brick for a fully autonomous production plant of the future. Because you mentioned that also, I think once or twice during the podcast here, but I mean, its ability to write a code, right? But also to, let's say, write sort of like a program for the robot, right? So it's I think that is the one of the superpowers here, which could really be a game changer in a way. The plants or manufacturing environments, production lines are going to be operated in the future.
Okay, cool. If people would like to know more about yourselves or any of the things we discussed in the podcast today, where would you have me direct them?
Yeah, I mean, we can be reached out through the idc.com, right? So where you just, you can see our names. We also publish, I would say, a lot of like opinion pieces, thought leadership articles, worldwide, right? So it's very easy. It's very easy to reach me or Lorenzo. I mean, through the web.
Okay, fantastic.
Or maybe also the LinkedIn. Yes, sorry.
Her LinkedIn, great. I'll put your LinkedIn links in the show notes of this podcast, as well as the link to IDC, and people can find them there. Superb. Jan, Lorenzo, that's been fascinating. Thanks a million for coming on the podcast today.
Thank you,
Thank
Tom.
you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye-bye.